What's up, everybody, and welcome back to my channel. Thank you all for the subscriptions and the likes and the comments. I really appreciate it, especially being new and trying to grow this channel out. Today I figured I was gonna talk about a very controversial topic, but one that's very near and dear to my heart. And I had thought about keeping my channel away from this kind of conversation, but it's somewhat inevitable, and we're just gonna get right into it. So today I'm gonna talk about what it's like to be a police officer in 2021. Alright, I've been a police officer for about 8 years. I come from a law enforcement family. My father did 20 plus years as a well-respected detective, and now works for the sheriff's office. And so, I kind of just got right into it. But let me give a little bit of background on myself for those that don't know me, so I can build a little bit of credibility in what I'm saying, so you don't think that I'm just somebody up here who's done 1 or 2 months on the street, and now I'm trying to give a perspective. One is I was a total knucklehead before I became a police officer. I did not live my lifestyle in a way that with the idea that I was going to become a police officer. I was doing things, I was indulging things, things I'm not going to get into, just to maintain the integrity of my position. But I was a knucklehead. All right, and I wasn't necessarily anti-police, but I definitely was running the other direction because I was involved in things that, were not law-abiding. So, also on top of that, I got into law enforcement for a job, not so much because I wanted to be a police officer. So that's the second thing. Third thing is I'm a police officer where I grew up, which means I run into the same people that I used to hang around and all that. So I think that gives me a unique perspective, especially on everything that's going on right now. And I kind of want to share that from a police officer's perspective. Now, hear me out. This is going to be wildly opinionated, okay? This is my personal opinion, which, in case you forgot, you're allowed to have those. And I'm just going to give a little bit of perspective from me as far as, I think, unspoken things about law enforcement, as far as what we do and what we experience, and kind of everything else that's going on. So let me just jump right into it. Okay. The past 2 years between COVID and all of the Black Lives Matter protests and things like that, the whole defunding the police movement and things like that, have, regardless of your viewpoint on them, has destroyed, in my opinion, the purpose behind the badge and what we do. The backlashes that I've seen, the only thing that I've seen from my perspective is that the crime rate has gone up, and that there's a false sense of entitlement among everybody to be able to treat law enforcement however they want. That's what I see from it. The other perspective on that is that I think there's a misunderstanding in what we do as law enforcement. The main joke that I always get every time I run across somebody who's like, oh, you're a cop, oh, don't pull me over. It's like, and I understand where the joke comes from, but it devalues the job a little bit. I mean, that's not all we do. Matter of fact, the number one call for service we go to for around here are suicidal subjects who are either feeling suicidal or who have attempted suicide, which is near and dear to my heart, and is a wildly big issue. That's why I said in my first video that if we could all come together on something, it's that everybody's going through something. So that's one thing. So I think the other thing that's not talked about that much in our profession is what we see and how it affects us as a person. I get this a lot. Oh, you signed up for it. Well, let me just tell you something right now. You could never imagine what you would experience in this profession as far as what you see on a daily basis. As far as like seeing somebody who's been shot, seeing somebody who's been killed, seeing somebody dealing with somebody who's just been sexually assaulted, seeing somebody who's just taken their own life, in very gory scenes. I mean, even most recently for me, dealing with an infant who has passed away, you know, and holding that body in your hands. I mean, those are things that aren't really talked about in the profession. And so, of course, if that trauma exposure is not handled appropriately, then there can be toxic behaviors that come from that. And I think that a lot of people in this profession, all first responder profession for the most part in military, can kind of relate to this. And I say all this because prior to the current narrative in America, you still experience the same messed up stuff, but there was like a oath to it. Like, you're like, you know what, but it's worth it. It's worth it. Like, it's worth it to experience all of these different things because I'm out here making a difference. Because believe it or not, most, if not all, people who get into these professions, especially ours, especially with everything you have to go through to get in it. I'm talking about 6 months just to get hired, to go through all the processes, and over a year of training, like all of that. You have to go through extensive work to get into the job in the first place. And then you have to commit yourself to a certain lifestyle because you have to maintain that integrity in order to keep your job. So it's not as easy as everybody thinks as far as just 1, 2, 3, they're just picking, you know, anybody to wear a badge. And of course, when media amplifies wrongdoings by law enforcement, which statistically are a very small number, but of course when it's being shoved down your throat, it seems like it's happening every day. You know, the whole narrative that's been pushed, which I know this is very one-sided. I'm a police officer, so of course it's gonna reel down this way, is that it's taken away the purpose. It used to be worth it, right? Well, at least that's kind of been the feeling. Like it used to be worth it. The lower pay. I got buddies of mine that are making a lot more money than me, and have been making a lot more money than me doing different things. I'm not saying less work, but just different work, not as mentally draining work, I would say, or life-threatening work, making more money, right? So you're not doing it for the money. You know, you're doing it because you truly believe that you're making a difference. And also, if you're a patriot, you really believe that policing is important in order to establish security so that businesses can prosper, so that people can have jobs, and so that crime rates stay down, so that people can live freely. Now, though, that's also controversial. Do I believe personally that the system is messed up? I do. Personally, I believe that the system caters to those who are financially well off, regardless of race, gender, background. That's just what I kind of see, is that the more money you have, the better quality lawyer you're going to get, and the better quality service overall that you'll see. I just think that, you know, for somebody who's been in, I was able to see the pendulum shift from proactivity was like, as far as like going out there and trying to find things and you know, I guess catch the bad guy, right? That was glorified, and now it's not glorified whatsoever. And also we just have a staffing problem and people are leaving, which I don't blame anybody who leaves the profession, because I believe that if you've reevaluated your self-worth, or you have other things that you've always wanted to do, and now you've chosen to do those because of the way that you've been treated the past two years in this profession, then I don't blame you whatsoever. And so we also have that happening, low morale, okay? We have low staffing. And I think that the purpose, that's the main piece that kind of holds this whole profession together. The purpose is what strips it. Okay, so now that I've kind of got like all the negative viewpoints out of the way, okay, the main thing I want to hit on is that I want people to know that in this profession, you are wildly exposed to a lot of traumatic incidents back to back to back to back. And something that I've been preaching for quite a while, because inevitably those incidents, tailored and pieced together with very toxic habits as far as drinking and and not taking care of my body and all these different things led to me having suicidal ideologies, right? So that's why all this started. But now you have those issues, which were already occurred prior to this, and now you've taken the purpose away. You have officers working mandatory hours. I know a guy who said that he worked 3 weeks at 12 straight because they're 12-hour shifts straight because they don't have staffing. They can't. I mean, how could you ever work like that? You know? So people who have worked hard to get into specialized units and things like that, and what I mean by a specialized unit is like if you're a detective or you're in a community outreach like I am, or you know, you're part of any other specialized unit, you're getting drafted to work patrol again, which is where you started, which you worked hard to get out of so that you could you know, do what you love to do. You're being pulled back to patrol because we don't have staffing. So regardless of how I may feel personally about the political debauchery that has happened here over the past couple of years, regardless of how I feel about that, I just think that the position, and I truly believe that the position of a law enforcement officer has been very, very devalued. And the problem is that we can't truly have freedom in this country unless we have laws that people are willing to abide by so that people can live safely. And I know that that's controversial as well, and I understand that. But that's that. If I'm looking at a very blank, broad statement, and there's a lot of issues intertwined with that, and has that been manipulated? Yes. But at a core basis, that's what you need to have security and to have safety. Otherwise, you're just going to have World War III. And in some of these cities, in some of these areas around the nation, it is like that. It's not safe whatsoever to be in. And when you wonder, it's like, who keeps those places safe? It's law enforcement. That's it. And the problem with the big defund the police movement is it's being led by individuals who, and I'm speaking very freely here, who may live a lifestyle or live a certain way where they don't need the police, so they just made a roundabout assumption that nobody else needs them either. If you've never needed the police, that doesn't mean that nobody else ever needs them. I can tell you right now, I'm working the streets and people are calling. People are calling. People are calling from all different races, genders, backgrounds are calling because they're desperate, in need of help, and they don't know who else to call. And so they call us. And at least where I live, we provide very, very good services for the circumstances that we're under right now. So that kind of follows up into, should I become a police officer? Now, the benefit that you have, and I have some guys who I love to death who have just joined, all right? The benefit that you have is that you don't necessarily know what it was like to serve prior to these things happening, so you can start fresh. And you can kind of get on the wave that we're going towards, which is like kind of like the new style of policing, which is a little bit more hands-off, more community focused, which isn't a bad thing whatsoever. So there are people that have said, you know, that they would never allow any of their friends or family to get into law enforcement. For me, I believe it's somewhat of a calling, and it's ironic I say that because I didn't get into it from that perspective. But if it's something that you truly want to do, you can still go out there and do good work under these circumstances. It's just from what people are struggling with, and what I'm struggling with, is that the way that we policed prior is different from the way that we're policing now, and I'm not seeing really any benefits as far as the overall safety of our communities, you know, during these times. I'm not really seeing anything, and you know, I could be wrong here. Look, if I'm proved wrong, then by all means I will fall on my sword and I will say, you know what, Dylan Ignacio was wrong. But from what I'm seeing is we've glorified criminal behavior, we've victimized everybody, and you know, we've also diminished the value of a job as important as a law enforcement officer. I'm not saying that just because I am one. It's because look at the power, or I guess responsibility, that we have. We're one of the few professions where you can actually take somebody's freedoms away temporarily, or potentially put them into a system that takes away their freedoms for long term. And to devalue that system means you're going to get lower and lower standards for up and coming officers. Now, of course, it's up to the departments to filter that out, but we don't have people running at our door to do this job anymore, which is crazy, because when I got hired, you know, just about 8 years ago, there's a line around the department trying to get in. And I know that you guys that have known me for a while will watch this video and understand where I'm coming from. Those who are just hopping on my channel and don't know me whatsoever might not understand my perspective. So maybe I can give a little bit of insight on that. Okay, I kind of went into, you know, getting into law enforcement, and how I got into law enforcement, and how my perspective might be different than maybe those who have always wanted to be in law enforcement. I think the one thing that is also unique is that I have personally multiple specialized units within my department. I've been a part of our civil disturbance unit, which is like, I guess the way that you might understand that is like a riot squad. But the guys who get all padded up, like in case there's civil unrest. I was just at the Capitol, geared up for that. I did a very, very brief stint on our special operations team. You know, and those guys are freaking amazing, like as far as how hard they work to ensure that when they're serving high-risk warrants or anything like that, they ensure that everybody's safe, to include themselves. I've been in our community outreach unit, where I've been able to start a program called a Teen Law Enforcement Academy and get teenagers, even during a time where we're not very sought after, a group of 18 to 20 teenagers to come after school and learn about the police department, and kind of give them an opportunity to formulate their own bias. Because like I said, you're just, you know, around the world, you're just being shoved a narrative down your throat. Like, you don't even really have an option to see anything else. You know, and I've gotten accolades for that, for some of the things that I've done, and I've been recognized for some of the things that I've done. So I don't feel like I'm speaking on behalf of, you know, just pure toxicity. I've seen the way that things are going, and I'm just hoping they turn themselves around, because we've lost really good people, really good officers, during this whole thing. And I don't, like I said, I don't blame them for leaving. It worries me about the future of law enforcement and the future of this country if we don't start to, you know, reprioritize security and safety so that everybody can have their freedoms. Now, you know, I've also been able to see from the system like how it's changed. I mean, we get individuals who get locked up for violent offenses, and then they get out and commit other violent offenses, and that doesn't leave anybody any more safe. You know, so I've kind of, look, I'm still in the profession, so I can't go all in on this video about my thoughts and feelings, but I think the main perspective here should be that before you jump to a conclusion about what you think about really anything, but let's just say law enforcement, is to have your own perspective. You know, going through Instagram and getting all your information from there, and then sharing a post that you don't even really care about, you're just trying to be a part of the trend because hating police is trendy right now. Like, you got to be careful with that, because then you're going to do that with every issue, and then you're not well educated in any of it. There are people out here who have been mistreated by the police, and those people have a right to throw hate. I understand that. But there's an overwhelming majority who have had no contact with police. Or maybe that police did write them a ticket and they feel like that wasn't fair. you know, when really that's the job of an officer. You break a traffic infraction, you might get a ticket for it. I mean, it is what it is, right? If we as a people, and that's from my side of the profession and also from just everybody else, could just hold themselves a little bit responsible for their actions, I think we'd be better off as a collective. But trying to get rid of or devalue a profession that has so much responsibility is not the answer. And also understanding that as a police officer, I don't have control over how much time somebody gets served or what happens when it goes to court or anything like that. I don't have control there. So you may have a lot of hate and discrepancies with the system altogether, but that's separate from the actual law enforcement profession. We are able to enforce, or as much as the laws that we serve under abide us to enforce. And so as a citizen, you have every right to get more involved with your city board or city council and start coming up with solutions. But I'll say this, like, I'm a big community guy. I love the community. I'm in community outreach. It's my favorite unit that I've been in ever since I've been in the police department, because I've been able to go into these neighborhoods and develop relationships with people who are really struggling, and and then also build relationships with people who at first hated people in our profession, but I've been able to kind of work those kinks out. I think that if you truly want to do service to the people who are really, getting the I guess the stick, the crap into the stick, with the way that this system goes, is that then you need to do your research before you start advocating for something that honestly never really will truly happen, and B, doesn't serve anybody any good. So I hope that gives like some perspective. I didn't mean for this to be like some big mope session. I just want everybody to have an idea that being a police officer is not all about just writing a ticket or stopping somebody or whatever. Like, it's not like this big harassment thing, okay? Like, people call the police, we get limited information, and then we have to go figure it out and investigate it. And if you get wrapped up in that and you didn't do anything, the best thing to do is just to hang out and work with us, because we only have half of the information. Let us work through it and then send you on your way. And if you feel like you've been mistreated, then you just file a complaint, because that actually does something. It goes in that officer's permanent file. It goes in their record. And as those build up, or depending on the severity of your accusation, it could lead to a termination. But there's not enough people doing that. There's not enough people doing any of that. There's none of that. It's I'm just gonna scream F you at the top of my lungs so that I can get a lot of views on this Twitter, because this this TikTok post, because I'm not really worried about social justice. I just want the views, and I just want to be popular because I'm alone, and it stems all the way down into these things. Do I think that reallocating funds for mental health services is important? Yes, I'm a mental health advocate. But when things go south and people become violent, we're the only people to respond. So just be curious of that. I think it's just one of those things where, like when I got back from Guatemala, I knew when I was in Guatemala, if I called the police, I wasn't going to get the same service that I would get here. Whether the officer was nice to me or not. The services were going to be different. I was on my own. Here, it's different. You call the police and they come, and whether you appreciate that interaction or not, they're still there, and it's our duty to keep you safe. And we're trying to do that, but it's like trying to run around out here with a blindfold on or a hands cuffed behind our back, So that's my perspective. And I say all this, and I know it's extremely negative, and I'm sorry for that, but that's my perspective. Okay, we need to take care of our officers. We need to get our officers more mental health treatment for all of the mismanaged trauma that they experience. We need to boost morale, boost numbers, and have a community that supports us so that people who are truly bad individuals that are out there to harm other people are put away. Simple. You know, I know that's like some perfect world scenario, but that's how the system's supposed to work. And whether it's been modified or tailored, that has nothing to do with us as police officers. It doesn't. So, I appreciate you sticking around for this video. If you have any other questions related to my profession or anything like that, let me know. I do want to give full disclosure that I'm still active. May I get out in the next couple of years? I don't know, maybe. I'm pursuing my passion right now. That's why I started this YouTube video. I've always wanted to do this, regardless of everything that's happened over the past couple of years. So that's why I'm doing it. Will this lead me out of law enforcement? Maybe, maybe not. I don't know. But if you have any questions or anything like that, or you'd like me to discuss anything else, let me know. And I do truly believe this in my core, is that if is from a law enforcement standard, if I could take my badge, put it on the floor, and me and you discuss some of the issues that we're having internally, I'm sure we'd have a lot more in common than you'd think. This divide and conquer thing is destroying us as a nation. All right. So with that, I appreciate you guys sticking around. I hope you got something from this. I hope this gave you a little bit of an insight, some perspective, and I'll catch you guys in the next one. Peace.